Life and business can be easy, but us silly humans love getting in our own way. My name is Nico Rapclis, and I've had a wild journey. From releasing traumas that I held on to for decades, to playing college athletics, working with multi-million-dollar brands, having a spiritual awakening, and now coaching incredible humans navigate their inner and outer world. The Just Grow podcast is my outlet to share and help others with life and business. After investing north of $100,000 into my personal and professional development, the Woo plus Do formula is what has served me best. A healthy combination of mindset, energetics, consciousness, spirituality, self-healing, and discovery, matched with a high-level strategy, principles, focus, optimization, and accountability to help you be, do, and have everything that has been placed in your heart. This podcast is for the impact-driven entrepreneur that is finally ready to start thriving internally and externally. Welcome to Just Grow.
Well, thanks for being here, man.
Absolutely, brother.
Dude, we practically had a podcast before we even turned on the cameras.
This is true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was speaking about life.
Yeah.
You know, that's the authenticity that we get.
That's the key, man. It's like what you said is like you reach a point where like you can't not operate in integrity after you really understand your values and who you are and what you stand for and certain experiences that you had specifically with your daughter, which we can dive into. But I think it would be kind of cool to just give a little context to how we met, because it was pretty unique. And got to shout out Stacey Davis, because she put together an amazing circle. And I got to interview Jordan Seifert as well, and he was sitting right there a few days ago. And I met so many cool people that night, and you included. So I knew that after our brief conversation, I was like, I want to sit down, have a good conversation, and here we are. So thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a pretty interesting, right? I mean, Stacey put on an amazing event, and we were having a conversation. I was sitting across from you. We hadn't met really yet.
Yeah.
And I think I was being a little bit tough on myself. I think I was being like, Stacey was giving me a really big shout out, and she's like, you've done this and you've done that, and you're so powerful, and leadership and all of these things. And I think I was just deflamation on myself at the end, like self-deprecating, and you just looked over and aggressively goes, why are you saying that about yourself?
Yeah.
Why do you use those words? Why do you say that? And for a moment, I thought to myself, like, why is this guy challenging me? And it took, right? I went from aggression to seeing a place of peace where and I was like, he's actually trying to get me to think and speak better words about myself into the world. And I think it was kind of cool. And I it went from a place of I can't stand this guy to I respected you a lot more once I allowed that to process for about 10 or 12 seconds. And then we had a great conversation after that. But it's great. I love to push myself down. I mean, I've got a lot of accolades, and I think sometimes self-deprecation keeps me a lot more humble. That's how I do things into my head. But I appreciate that.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And it's interesting that was your perspective and your experience, because I don't know, I can see how that would come across. But I know how, like, I think specifically men, I think this is a whole conversation for men specifically, but we are so damn good at being hard on ourselves, and myself included. And, I work with, some really amazing people, and it's like they can't recognize how great they are a lot of times. And I think we need people in our lives that can mirror and show us how amazing we are until we can truly understand that. And I've been fortunate enough to have people that have done that for me, and so I just feel like I'm just passing it along.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, because you're doing incredible things, and also, more importantly, I would even say is that, like, your heart is like, because like the way Stacey was explaining it is like, okay, you've done these things, all these things, but the reasons that you're doing it, because you're recognizing how messed up a lot of things are going on, and you want to help them, and you have the capabilities and the resources to do it, which a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
I think just from my perspective, I think we both come from pretty different worlds and live in different worlds. And the type of resources that you have, that is not normal for most people. And so for someone that does have those capabilities and is wanting and is willing to put their feel like actually willing to actually implement it, there's not many people like that. And so that's what I just recognized in the moment, and so it just came out of me.
Yeah, it comes from a place of, what are you going to be remembered by? I've done a lot of fun things in the world. You know, I've worked at Cisco. I've built a software division from them from ground zero. I was the first employee in the software division, killed it at Cisco. And, you know, today that division is going to do almost $20 billion.
Wow.
Right now. And while it was amazing and I made so much money at the time, and I got to travel the world, I'm in 100 countries, I've been on stage and do all these amazing things, the money never necessarily made me happy. I thought it did. I thought it made me happy, but it came to a point to where I was chasing something and an allure of happiness that wasn't real. It wasn't real. And so when I sat down after my career at Cisco and investing in various different companies, and we can get into all of that, but the big push to do what I'm doing now at Phil Vella was, what are you going to be remembered by? Like when you die, and I know it sounds crazy, it's like, I did this exercise where I got to write my obituary today. And then I got to write my obituary if I died in 10 or 15 years. And I wrote it today, and oof, it wasn't great. I mean, it was good, but it wasn't great. And so then I wrote a second obituary, and it came down to, what impact can I have on the world? And what impact could I have on a community that's selfless, and that can change the way all of us live, work, and play selflessly. Build confidence amongst men and women, right? Recreate the possible and give confidence at a more affordable price. When you look at confidence today, crazy expensive, right? People are buying confidence. They're buying, all of these injections. They're doing hormones. They're doing all of these things, but it's so expensive.
And it's fleeting.
And at the end of the day, you're just covering up insecurity. You're covering up the insecurity of who you are, right? You're buying the confidence, especially on the external, the clothing, what you look like, all of these things. And so I looked at hormones and I looked at all of these things that I was doing at the time. And I'm like, this is even crazy. This is super crazy expensive. Like, wow, how do normal people afford stuff like this? What does the $50,000 to $100,000 person do in this world? And I just decided to selflessly build another company that is healthy, not just for the wealthy. How do you revolutionize and build out the game? But that's it was amazing. It's been amazing, creating and building and doing something that's less about me, right? I've had the money, I've had all of the accolades, I had all of the accessibility, people, and nothing can compare to the joy and ecstasy that I feel when I get the people call me and they're like, oh my God, you saved my marriage. Oh my God, I got in a relationship. Oh my God, the girl that I like finally looked in my direction. My kids, I have more energy to play with them. There's just so many cool things that come from the new business and just helping people become the best versions of themselves. And it's been pretty amazing to watch, hear, and listen. And again, money's important. It is. It's very important. I don't want to diminish it. But giving people something that they would never either be able to afford or at an even better price, where they don't have to sacrifice a vacation or a car payment or something big. It's been pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, I resonate with that deeply because I mean, I've been doing work of sorts to help people become the best version of themselves in a different way.
Yeah.
And when you get those testimonials of people just like thanking you and being like, wow, if it wasn't for you and what you've created, I wouldn't like have had this, I wouldn't have experienced this. It's like if you get that type of feedback and you have those type of positive experiences, and then it kind of takes a sociopath to be like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore.
Fair.
Right?
Yeah.
And it also reminds me of, have you read the book Psycho-Cybernetics?
I have not.
I bet you'd like it. It's about this guy in the 20s, I believe it was, Maxwell Maltz. He was a plastic surgeon, and he kept on fixing people, making them look beautiful, and still they would be like, I still feel ugly. And so it really is, it's an internal job. And the metaphor I've been drawing a lot lately is, because it's like when I said you were talking about these things that people are buying confidence, but it's fleeting. It's kind of like being at a campfire, and it's like the fire is starting to dwindle, and you have two options. You can go out there and actually like cut a bunch of wood, which takes a lot longer and it's a lot more work to like build that confidence, or you could just go grab the twigs and the branches and just throw it on. And it lights the fire for a little bit longer, but again, it's just going to be fleeting. So it's like, what game are you playing? Are you playing the return on, I like to call it the return on energy game or the return on ego game? Because if you just keep on playing the return on ego, it's kind of like throwing the branches and then it just keeps on diminishing very quickly.
Yeah, I speak to, we serve men and women, and to go back to covering up, is women, to use an example, a woman will buy confidence to cover up the insecurities, the purse, the dress, and they'll show up at an event, like in their beautiful dress, their brand new Chanel purse, right? But they put that purse down and they walk over to the bar. Half of their confidence is sitting at the table. They're not as confident as they are anymore because they sat down, right? They were covering up the insecurities and buying things. And not all women are like this, don't get me wrong, but a lot, it makes you feel better when you have that brand name item. And I use the example of, what if you were in a TJ Maxx dress and a Goodwill purse and you felt like the baddest woman in the room? How would that make you feel? Like where you don't have to cover up insecurities anymore because inside you feel amazing. What would that do for you? How would that affect your life? How would that affect your job? How you show up as a wife, a girlfriend, a parent, a friend? You become so much more of who you are, not worrying about the brand name this and the brand name that, and trying to cover up those insecurities. I think it's something that we become so accustomed to, right? That's what the marketing game has pushed us to, is to believe that, hey, if you just had this purse, if you just had this, dress, the newest, latest thing, confidence. And I play it with the guys too. I said, let's go out tonight, and you don't get to wear your watch, and you don't get to drive your car, and you got to wear your Nikes, and you get to wear your jumpers and a t-shirt, no labels. Let's see how good you feel. And that's the test of how good a man is on the inside. Do you have the same confidence that you did with all of those things, going and approaching and engaging in men and women, just having conversation? Or are you less of a person internally and mentally because of that?
The thing that comes to me, it's interesting we even got to this point of the conversation, is we've been playing around with a lot of different messaging of what we do. I know I shared briefly about what we do, but it's been interesting communicating the message of like how we help people, because it's just like a lot of internal work. And so one of the things that we're playing around with right now is like really helping people build their authentic personal brand. That's really starting to resonate with me deeply, because I've been building my brand, my personal brand for largely over 10 years. And the more I like dive into this messaging, the more it's speaking to me, because you're talking about like basically all these people are very confident when they have these other brands, right? But when you take that away, what do you have? Well, ultimately you have your personal brand. And I think I have a little bit different approach of what a personal brand is because it's built from the inside out. A lot of people think that's like, oh, pick a niche and then just make that your brand and then you can sell products in that niche. Like, no, you kind of earn your personal brand based on like who you are, your vision, your values, your identity, all the things that we were talking about earlier. And then from there, it's just a matter of communicating that message externally, whether it's through conversations, relationships, content. Content is just a way to build relationships at scale, is what I always say. But it's like, exactly, it's like, what is your personal brand without all the other brands? Because if you don't have the confidence without those, like it's situational confidence. It's not real.
I think we don't want to hear the answer. Because a lot of times I ask people, who are you? Like, who are you? They go, what do you mean, who am I? Who are you? And how I judge, and it's not me that judges, I allow others to provide the information, and I develop a great way to assess should that person be in my life or not, is what would your best or closest three people say about you? What would they say your best qualities are? What would they say your values are? What would they say your ethics are? And what would they say, what type of friendship style do you have with them? And I think those 3, 4, 5, right, depending on how many close people you have to you, we should do that and do that audit on ourselves fairly consistently, because we're consistently changing. Our experiences change. Our lives are constantly funneling and absorbing new information. The person you are today, next week, right or wrong, isn't the exact same person you are right now. You've experienced, internalized, processed, and made new biases, new information. I think a good audit is to go to your closest people and say, what would they say about you? All right? I think, it's important to me to talk about like how I judge a lot of people today, and it comes through, the engagement like that I have with everyone in the community, but with myself specifically. When I show up to a relationship, a friendship, an intimate relationship, whatever it may be. I use my daughter, for example, I did earlier, is when I show up to a relationship and you say something or you act a certain way to a woman, having a daughter has been both the biggest blessing and a curse that I've had in my life. And I think to myself, is this the man, right? To show up the best is be the man that you want your daughter to be with. There is no higher bar, in my opinion. Like that is the absolute highest bar in the world is, would you be happy with yourself if your daughter was dating you? Are you showing up correct? Are you being that man? Are you respectful? Do you have morals, ethics? Are you saying the right things? Are you, quick to speak, slow to listen? Right? We talked about it or are you quick to listen, slow to speak? Do you have patience? Are you operating from massive emotional stability and trauma? And I think that for me specifically, creates a better man and a better person. But that also allows me to judge others. In one, what do their best friends say about them or their closest people say about them? And then more importantly, if they are a parent, which, not everybody is, but if you are a parent, do you show up in the way that you would want? That goes for women as well, right? Are you showing up in the way that you would want someone to show up for your son, right? Or are you just pushing him down and being a problem for no reason, or putting stress and anxiety for no reason, or whatever it may be? But I think it's, at this point in my life, I've now seen so much and have so much experience. I have to go and look at who a person is through the lens of others. Mm-hmm. Not trust it completely, but through the lens of others, and then through the lens of, do they believe that they're the person that they want to be?
Mm. Yeah, and I think it's interesting. I'd be curious also, this is a question that just arises, but I have to imagine that there is a lot of people that want to be friends with you. They want to be in your life. And I've, over especially the last few years, I've gotten to experience that more and more as I've built my platform. And it's interesting because it's like, for me at least, I always want to believe the best in everybody. And I think previous versions of myself probably believed in the best in people to a fault, and got to learn a lot of lessons from that. And now I'm being more selective and just, I would say even just more patient with people, not like making assessments on people, whether, oh, this person's going to be in my life or they're not going to be in my life, just kind of like observing them a little bit more. But I would be curious on how you approach it when people start, like people come into your life and you kind of just, like, how do you determine, what kind of process do you go through to determine whether this person's going to start being a little bit more around me, a little bit more access, so on and so forth?
It's a great question. I think it molds over time, right? It's different depending on where I'm at and in my life. I think the biggest, by far, I'm going to sound like a tree hugger type of guy at this time, right? This wasn't always me, but today I judge energy more than anything in the world. How a person shows up.
I want to stop you real quick.
Yeah.
Why do you keep saying judge?
Judge, I feel judge is a way to decide, right? I don't necessarily use the way judge. It's you're making a decision, a final conviction, right? When you make a judgment, legal terms, I think I make the judgment, meaning that this is the way that I choose to see it. Is it for the plaintiff? Is it for the defendant, right? And it just says, am I for this person? Am I against this person? It's not necessarily in a negative context, but am I for the person? Or am I against the person? And that's how I like to judge through the eyes of myself and then the eyes of others.
Is it binary like that, where it's either you're for them or against them, or could it be something else?
I could not be for them or against them, but then I would create distance because there's no reason. If I'm not for someone in my life, and it could take more time, and so you put them into similar like an airplane, put them like a holding pattern before they can land that jet.
Yeah.
And if it's not for me, I'm going to divert them to another airport.
Yeah.
And so,
Way to put it.
we're closed up, right? Landing strip one's closed at this point. But just thinking about the energy of others is paramount. It's how I judge all relationships. And energy comes up in many different forms, right? How are you showing up? How do you come? How do you come to the table? How do you come to lunch? If we were to meet up for lunch, do you immediately dive into the problems going on in your life? And more importantly, if there are problems going on in your life, which we all have these problems, right? We all have problems. Are you victim mentality? Poor me, why me? This always happens to me. Or are you more solution orientated? Like, hey, this is going on, I've got this, and you're looking for ideas and you're looking to provoke thought to overcome. I don't believe venting is necessarily a positive thing. I think venting gives too much attention to these problems, and unless you're trying to solve them, or unless you're trying to do something to move them, it's very important. But that's part of the energy process, part of the energy evaluation. I look at relationships, and it's very hard to explain it, holistically. But if I show up to a lunch, if I show up to an engagement, if I have a phone call, 1 + 1 has to equal 5. 1 + 1 has to equal 5. If 1 + 1 is 2, or 1 + 1 in a lot of cases, which we know is like 1.5, you're like, how did I lose half? And I didn't get replenished, and I didn't feel better leaving that. Like, I have to feel so good. And it's not all the time. We're going to have bad days.
Yeah.
We're going to have bad moments. But holistically, by and large, are you good energy? Are you positive? Do you have a positive outlook on life? Are you motivated? Are you moving? Or when I meet up with you, do you just want to gossip about people? Do you want to talk about this person and that person? Oh, my stomach drops and I'm like, I got to get out. I've got to get a phone call. Something fake has to happen at this point.
What's going on here?
For those of you that this might have happened to, please, God, I'm sorry. But I don't get an emergency phone call. it's you have to guard your energy, because that lunch, I'm really good at compartmentalizing, but it's going to affect you for the rest of your day sometimes.
Yeah.
Right. If for something they said, you're just like, why do you look at things this way? Why do you look at yourself as, and I'd be lying if I said I don't keep one of these people around me. One. I'll keep at least one Debbie Downer, a negative person. And people always go, why? And I know this sounds crazy, but it allows me to appreciate every other person in my life. It gives me a little bit of a board to measure against sometimes.
Well, have you heard of I think they call it the rule of 33, where you want to, like 33% of the time you want to be hanging around people that are further than you, 33 with people that are right at your level, and then 33% with people like essentially you're kind of like bringing up.
Yeah. And look, the same thing is you get a person that's a great mentor, you get a person to bounce something off of, and you get a person to mentor. And I talk to a lot of guys today that I mentor. A lot of them don't have a mentee because they're early in their life. And I said, it's crazy because everybody looks up to someone. And the amount of value that comes from you mentoring someone, I look at it as they're mentoring me sometimes, because the things that come out of my mouth, I was like, wow, you're full of shit right now. Like, you just said all of that. What did you do in the last engagement that you had? What did you do in the last discussion? So it is a little bit of a mirror that allows you to talk to them and be like, whoa. It's a good self-reflection, because when you're talking to other people, you're also talking to yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
And so it's really a good discussion. But yeah, going back to 33, you always need someone to help you, someone to bounce ideas off, and then someone for you to help. And to me, crazily enough, me specifically, the person that I'm helping, I reap the most rewards, because it constantly lets me evaluate me.
100%. It's like, and I was going to mention this as well, as you were talking about the like mentoring and how that helps you so much. I've recognized that within my coaching is like, the people that I'm coaching are such reflections of, especially like places where I'm not freed up yet. And they keep bringing things to light, and I like, sometimes I recognize, or I'm like starting to get frustrated, and then after the call I'll be like, wow, that was so good, because it's just like an amplify, like little insecurities that just are still kind of dormant, if you will. Like, they're bringing so much light to it because they're so in it, and I feel like I'm kind of like transitioning out, but it's still there. And the fact that they're just like so honest and authentic to share that stuff, and just like, wow, what a blessing to be able to coach people and learn so much about myself through helping other people.
We're a work in progress always. Like, we never stop overcoming, creating, building, modifying, refocusing, recalibrating, readjusting ourselves. And when you do, you start to die, or you start to deteriorate and become a lesser version of yourself. I talk to everyone, it's like, oh, I did it, I made it, or good. Great, what are you gonna do next?
Yeah.
Right? What are you gonna do next? And because everyone else is moving. If you're standing still, you're going backwards, because everyone else is progressing, for the most part. Everyone else is moving. So I think it's important for self-reflection all the time. And you can't speak higher volumes to it, because we end up in this rat race. We forget to work on ourselves. People are like, I can't go to the gym, I can't do this. I can't afford that. You can't not afford to do that. You can't not afford to eat healthy. You can't not afford to go to the gym. Mm-hmm. Right? And there's always somebody chasing. It's like, I think I saw a meme the other day. The guy on the jet is, looking up at Bezos. The guy that's on the first class seats looking up at the guy at the jet. The guy that's in the limousines looking up at the guy in the first class seat. The guy that's in a car is looking at the limo. And then I think it goes, the guy in the bicycle is looking at the guy in a car. And then the guy walking is looking at the guy in the bicycle. And here's where it gets interesting. The guy in a wheelchair is looking at the guy walking. And the guy in the hospital is looking out the window at the guy in the wheelchair. And the guy in his deathbed is looking at the guy in the hospital that still has a chance at life. And I think we're constantly looking at something else. We're always going to be a little bit depressed and a little bit miserable if we're chasing something outside of ourselves. Instead, look at yourself internally. And the battle of me is me against me every single day. I look in the mirror and I wake up. What are you going to do today? What are you going to do today to better yourself from yesterday?
And who are you going to be? Because it's like the doing is certain an aspect, but it's like the person determines the doing. That's like one of the things that I'll always continue to harp on is like, how do we look at things through the lens of our highest self? Because if you look at that lens, you're like, okay, how would my highest self operate? How would he behave? How would he think? How would he handle adversity? How would he approach this day? When he's like, he feels a little hesitant and like, oh, I'm not sure if I want to go to the gym. Like, how does that guy show up? He's like, all right, maybe I don't want to go, but like, I know what it's going to do for me. And when you continue to think through that lens, it makes things a lot more clear, because at the end of the day, we just want to show up as our highest self, and you get to determine whether you're being your highest self today or not. Like, you can be your highest self today. And the other thing I would say to that, you said that we're always a work in progress. I thought this was one of the most fire quotes I've ever heard, is that yes, we are a work in progress, but we're also a masterpiece at the same time. And it's having that duality.
This is where you come on. The original start of this discussion is think of yourself as in a very high light at all times, because it'll go back to success. Because people are, when you're running in the rat race and you're chasing things, you rarely look back and acknowledge how far you've come. You rarely look back. Think about when you go on a road trip. Do you look at how many miles you've traveled? Or do you look at, man, 43 miles left, 22 miles left, we're almost there, 26 minutes. I think about my daughter when we go to Disneyland, right? Drive to Disneyland, she goes, Daddy, how far, how far, how far? It's not how far we've went, it's how long till we get there. And I think in life, it's important to look back and acknowledge, like, look at what you've done. Be proud of who you've become, be proud of who you are. I'm not the best at it, I'll be the first person to say, because I'm very hard on myself. And I'm constantly don't want to look back at the past. I constantly don't want to look at what I've done, because then I could become complacent, me specifically. I've become like, wow, I did all of these things. Look at these awards, look at the accolades, look at what I built. And I could become complacent. So I throw out my awards, I throw out my trophies, I throw it all out because I don't want that to be my identity. So that I continue to fight to become the best version of myself.
Yeah, it really is like a duality, because if you just start acknowledging yourself and enjoying the moment and being present, that's amazing. But if that's the only thing you're focused on, then that's where the complacency can start coming from. Like, oh, just woo, something we talk a lot about in our coaching company. We talk about the woo and the do. And it's like, it is like the internal work, the acknowledgement, the presence, all that kind of stuff. You are a masterpiece. But then the other side, the do side, is like, you're a work in progress. Let's get to going. What's the vision? What are we doing moving forward? Let's take the action. Let's build. So it's like constantly dancing between the two. Because on the flip side, if you're always in the do mode and you're always, I'm just a work in progress, you're beating yourself up and it's just nothing's never enough. And so I really believe that it's about balancing the two. It's never one or the other.
I think acknowledging how far you've come actually helps the rest of the road. It gives you a little bit more confidence. It gives you a little bit more edge, because it's not easy. It's the bigger the risk, right? The bigger the risk that you're taking, the more barriers and boundaries, walls and bumps that are going to happen. And so it's important to know, like, you came this far and overcoming a lot of that. So
there's one other thing I was going to mention to all that. Oh, yeah, I guess I don't think I've asked you this question through the conversations we've had, but obviously you're building this whole thing with Vita Bella. I'd be curious how you would just answer this question, but like what's not even necessarily like with Vita Bella, obviously, because I know that's a big focus of yours, but like what's your vision moving forward?
The vision moving forward, and I think it changes over time consistently, but my vision today is uniquely focused on Vita Bella to impact as many lives as humanly possible. Um, Today, and I wasn't going to get into this, but I'm going to get into this, is today too many men and women are hormonal imbalanced, and it comes from food. The food that we eat today is shit.
Yeah.
Half the things that are legal in America aren't even legal in Europe, right? From you look at our French fries versus their French fries. You look at our Fruit Loops versus their Fruit Loops. You look at our Gatorade versus their Gatorade. Half of the things that are, you're looking at 18 ingredients versus 4. And so men, I'll talk about men specifically, looking at these young men today, testosterone levels are coming in at 180, 250, things of that nature. That's crazy. Low testosterone in comparison to historicals. And we wonder why we have so many kids playing video games and beta men and not showing up masculine. People use the word toxic masculinity. There's no such thing as toxic masculinity, in my opinion. There's masculinity, and then there's insecure masculinity, right? You're not secure man, so you abuse your masculinity in ways that aren't, honoring your highest truth or your best self. And so my goal is to bring back people to optimal levels of where they should be. Truthfully, I want to impact 1 million Americans. Now, do I want to go bigger? Yeah, I feel like that's an already audacious goal, impacting 1 million people's lives. But using my company to impact 1 million people's lives, to feel the best version of themselves, look the best version of themselves, and become the best version of themselves. I think it's a struggle when you look at today where men and women are. It's the cart and the horse. Is it, do I work on my mental state first, or do I work on my physical and physiological state first? And I think it might be different for everybody. But I'll tell you, for me specifically, how I look and how I feel internally, biomarkers, blood, things of that nature. If I do those things first, my mental state will naturally be better.
Yeah.
Right? Other people, maybe that come from trauma and other points of life, they've got to get through some of that first before they can show up at the gym, and the mental reservations and insecurities to come there. So I think it's different for everybody, but the goal of myself and how I want to show up is I want to impact as many human lives as possible. When we die, nobody's going to remember your car, your house, the parties, how funny you were.
Yeah.
What's your legacy? What do you leave? How many lives can you impact from right now for the rest of your life? And not that it's egotistically driven that, oh, well, I did that and I helped them. But how many people can look back and say, this company took me from where I was and here's where I'm at today. And that distance is so unfathomable to your human mind. I've seen people that don't look the same, act the same, feel the same, completely two different humans in a matter of 6 to 12 months. Now, results may vary with everybody, right? But if you show up, do the work, the sky's the limit. And so my resolve and my happiness and even joy in life right now, because it's truly been the most joyous part of my life. When I selfishly, how cool is it that I can say the absolute best days of my life are ahead of me?
Yeah.
I'm 43 years old. The best days are ahead of me? That's crazy talk in my mind. Like, I can't even believe or fathom saying that out loud a couple of years ago. And that comes from both how I feel using our own products. And this isn't a sales pitch, but how I feel using our own products. I feel the best I've ever felt in my life. I went from a bio age of 52 to 27 in a year.
Jeez.
And I'm watching it happen with others. Like, the true joy and what's next is, how do I keep this shit going? Like, how do I consistently blow this thing out to where we impact so many people in a way that no one else has done, at a price point that nobody's done, and we keep innovating and introducing new things that other people are unwilling to do, or they're a little bit afraid, or they don't know enough about the products and things of that nature. But this is, you know, I do that on the business front. Obviously, being an amazing dad, watching my daughter become, you know, the beautiful woman that she already is. And then eventually, you know, getting in a relationship and fulfilling, you know, a ton of other life goals that I want to push forward to. But first and foremost is control the things you can control.
Yeah.
Right now, Vita Bell is my baby. I've got a ton of other business and investments and ventures, but Vita Bell is my baby. It makes me the happiest. I put all of my energy and effort into it today. And my daughter, right? And then the rest of the things in life, they'll come when the time's right? I don't think you can stop what's meant for you.
Yeah, exactly.
And I can't try and keep something that's not meant for me. So I just focus on the things I can control. And this has been a journey that, you know, many a nights my daughter has seen me in tears. Like, it's been real.
For Vita Bella specifically?
Yeah, Vita Bella and her, and like watching her see me as the best version of myself. I mean, I show up for my daughter today in a way that I never showed up for her. Externally, this town and friends saw a good dad because of what I posted on social media. Today, I am the man that I posted on social media. It wasn't always that case. It wasn't always that I was there. I wasn't always present. I wasn't always showing up as the best version of myself. I presented it because that's what you want to do, right? You don't want to present the pains, the trials, the tribulations.
Yeah.
You don't, but I feel so much more comfortable today showing those things to everybody because we're all battling something. And I think
100%.
this is an amazing transition, just becoming, it's crazy, like becoming the man that I used to tell people I was. That goes back to Stacy again, right? Talking about Stacy Davis, right? The stories that we tell ourselves. I had this story of this is who I am for so long. Right or wrong, I you know, that story became now who I am.
Wow.
There's a lot of power in that for me, like becoming the person that I used to say that I was, and the father that I used to say that I was.
Yeah, something that continues to come to me is strong boundary, or open heart, soft heart, strong boundaries. And, you know, it's something I'll just note on what I noticed, like one of our first interactions via text message. We're figuring out when we could get on a call, and you're like, okay, I have this time, and then after that, it's daughter time. And I thought that was so cool because, again, it's like strong boundaries have the structure, but then after that, like, it's like focus on the things that are important. And so, I mean, from everything that you shared and what I can perceive, is like you are upholding that, and that's really beautiful. That you are, like, the only way that you can truly like answer those type of questions is how you live your life, because it's like just what you're saying. It's like, you know, I was saying I was this guy, but was I living it?
I brought my work home every day. And so my daughter would talk to me, and you know how you zombie out. I zombied out all the time, and I'd be on my phone. And we have this, it's called the cell phone jail at the house.
Okay.
So it's a clear box. It's like an Oakley sunglass box that you'd find back in the day at like Sunglass Hut. It's got a key, and she can take the phone, and she can put the phone inside of there, and then she can lock my phone inside of a locker, per se, for an hour or two, and I am unavailable to the world. I do not have a second phone. and I'm completely unavailable to the world.
Wow.
And she gets to choose that cell phone now. Making sure that we have visibility of the key has been a problem because she wants more time. But yeah, I've created boundaries to where when I go home and I'm with my daughter, those are like from 4 o'clock when she gets home from school to at least 6 o'clock. I want to be highly engaged. I want to be there for her. You know, she's 10 years old right now, and I probably only got 2 years left of me being a cool dad. Then I hear that, you know, dad dropped me around the corner of school, which is crazy talk to me right now. I'm like, I'm always going to be the cool dad. But apparently, you know, that comes to a point where that changes. So until that changes, I'm going to try and have as much influence on her as humanly possible. I want her to see me engaged. I want to do things. I'll give you one big ticket item for my daughter, and this is crazy. 3 years ago, I took away all of her TV, phone, and computer privileges. She's never got them back. To this day, my daughter operates without a TV, without a phone, and without a computer.
Wow.
And so it has forced, by the way, it's very hard on me. A lot more stress, time constraints. So from like 4 to 6, where most people would go and you go watch TV, go do this, go do that, go on the computer, go play Roadblocks or whatever it is. She has to earn. Only thing she can earn is TV time on the main TV in the living room, and she has to earn that TV time through pages. And pages are currency. I got that from I think what's the guy's name? David.
Coggin?
No, the guy out of Florida. He's great. David Beck. I forgot the gentleman's name, but he's like pages are currency. So he does this as well. I didn't see his podcast till later, but it's literally she reads. She wants to watch TV. Give me 200 pages. You want a half an hour? Give me 100 pages. You want to go to Disneyland? Give me 10,000 pages.
Of books?
Of books. She reads books.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, she has to read. And so it forces her, you know, to get into the books. And where this comes from is there's two things I think about the rich and the poor. And that comes from, if you look at a poor house versus a wealthy house in our neighborhood, what's one thing every one of our houses in our neighborhood has? A library. And when you go to, you know, less fortunate houses, which books aren't crazy expensive, libraries are close. There's not a lot of libraries, right? That's the first thing that I see as a massive separation, constant education. And then the second big piece I teach her every day is discipline. Like the single biggest determinator and factor of if you're successful or if you're not successful is discipline. I don't care what topic we're discussing. Discipline is the single greatest factor. Luck plays part of it. But you want to be, you know, lose weight, got to be disciplined with your food. You want a business, you got to be disciplined with your time and in your investments. You want to be, you know, out of debt, you got to be disciplined with saving. You want to be great at your relationship, well, you better make sure that you're disciplined with focusing and giving your effort and your time and overcoming obstacles. Any single thing that you do in life, you can be great at. You want to be great at pool, you want to be great at swimming, you want to be great at running. Anything, consistency over time. Yep. Consistency plus time equals success. And so I push her hard on that. So reading and discipline are the two things that I push her heavy on. But she has to also see that in me.
Yeah.
Like being the person that you say you are. Because then she's like, why don't I see you doing that, Daddy? Right? There's a lot of parents that tell their kids they can be anything that they want to be. And a lot of times I think, wait till that child looks at you and says, then Daddy, why aren't you in shape? Daddy, why don't you have the job that you want? Daddy, why don't you do those things? I think that's, you know, I'm going to have a whole nother podcast on this, but the biggest form of child abuse that I see today is us telling our kids they can be anything they want and the world's their oyster, but yet we don't show them through our own actions and our own perseverance and our own dedication to our own selves. Because if it's truly possible and they can be anything they want, then why are we?
Yeah.
And I think that's a big push.
Yeah, integrity. Are you showing up as are you showing up the way you're speaking?
Yeah.
I want to circle back real quick because I did have a couple questions, more surrounding like health
Yeah.
and Vita Bella.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about how the food system is just a zoo out there, what advice do you have around food, and like what does your diet consist of, and like where do you get your food?
Yeah, it's a good question. So what I try to eat as organic as possible. I try to stay away from a ton of processed foods. My daughter will tell you that sugar is the enemy and that we get to have it on our birthdays, Halloween, and Christmas,
Okay.
or when she's at a friend's house. She tends to be real sugared up when she goes to friends. I wonder why she wants to go to friends so much, but trying to eat as simple as possible. More ingredients equals shittier foods, right? More ingredients, that's color, processed, preservatives. All you have to do is look at an ingredient list. If the ingredient list is long, that's a no. Pretty simple. Ingredients list is long, that's a no. Do I eat perfectly all the time? No. Right, I go to Costco, I get some frozen chickens, I think it's called good chicken, naked chicken, right? You get a bunch of different things that help out with busier lifestyles. But for the most part, eating as healthy as possible, organic as possible, Whole Foods, fries, they all now have organic foods. The Whole Foods used to be the staple in the space. Now you're seeing that amongst, a lot more of the community. Now the hard part is it doesn't last as long. So you got to be willing to go to the grocery store a little bit more consistently. And it's the food. What you eat literally is who you are. Like what you eat is who you are. You eat healthy food, you feel healthy. You're getting the right antioxidants, nutrients. You're getting the right balance in your body. You're not putting in massively processed things. And you wonder why certain people look and feel and show up with so much more energy. Like that's not cocaine and meth, right? That's them. They have so much energy, electrolytes, and positive, nutritious food going through their body that their cells and mitochondria and ATP function is just off the charts, right? And then you uncouple that with, again, things that we do at Vita Bella to get your hormones dialed in, testosterone dialed in, everything else dialed in, you'll never feel better. Like, this isn't, the things that we do is not, they're all prescription drugs and medications and treatments, but the things that we do are not big pharma try and keep you hooked on this stuff forever. It's to, peptides are 7,000 natural peptides known, or 7,000 known peptides that are out there. And each one has their own pathways that they can change things in the human body and elevate you in the human body, help, growth hormone releasing peptides to, release more growth hormone from your pituitary gland. Testosterone is, if any drug for a man, in any treatment for a man, period, over the age of 30, 35 years old, 75%, you'll feel 75% better, in my opinion, just by getting your testosterone down. The rest of the 100 things that we offer, you're just playing with little pillars, right, at that point. But food's number one. It's the paramount. That's if you get your food dialed in, the rest of it ends up happening naturally over time. I tell people up front, you wouldn't even come to Vita Bella if you knew how to eat. Because fat, the more fat you have in your body, the lower your test is going to be, right? It releases estrogen, right? It's got a molecule in there. It releases estrogen. So the better you eat, the longer you should historically live. That along with weight training. I think that all of the new studies right now is the single greatest indicator of how long you're going to live is how much muscle you're carrying. Single greatest indicator, I think it's like the last 17 studies that I've been through, is the more muscle you're carrying into your 50s and 60s will indicate how much longer you're going to live for the rest of your life. No one, and doing the right exercises, by the way, no one falls really going up the stairs, right? People fall going down the stairs. How many times do you think through your day to walk on a treadmill backwards? You don't. And that's where your patellar tendon and all the strength comes in your knees to go downstairs. But that's where the big hip problems happen. That's where the knees, you bump your knee, you fall, you break a hip, you break a knee, you break a leg, you break an ankle. Like doing the right nutrition up front, the right weight training, and then at some point, if you need, companies like Vita Bella will dial in your hormones. We can help you lose weight if you need that booster. We can help you, we do everything. We do everything from sexual wellness to hair loss to anti-aging, skincare, injury recovery, cognitive function, hormone and peptide therapy, weight loss. So much of what we do in the health and wellness space. People are like, oh, you guys are like similar to like a medical healthcare company. We're healthcare, not sick care. We don't treat anything acute. We don't treat any of that stuff. But I go back always to food. If you can get your food dialed in, it'll save you a lot of trips to the hospital. It'll save you from taking extra hormones. It'll save you from having to go and repair the damage that you've done to your body. And before we end this, for sure, I want to talk about is we're the lowest priced product in the entire market, right? I mean, testosterone with us, I think, starts at $16 a month. It's very inexpensive. But more importantly is a lot of guys and girls go, I can't afford that. I can't afford that. And it's a funny story. Can't afford that. We get one body. But yet you drive a Lexus, you drive a Mercedes, you drive a $80,000 limited F-150. That car is going to depreciate over time. I'd rather drive a Kia and look and feel amazing than have a dope car. Because guess what? Goes back to the earlier conversation. I don't need that car to show up anymore. Like that's, some of us don't necessarily use that status symbol, but a lot of people use their cars and all these things because it makes them feel better and it's a status symbol. But your body, I look at things when people say I can't afford that. You can't not afford to do this. And especially what we charge is insignificant. And if it's not us, find somebody to help you.
Yeah.
I don't care what you end up doing. I just want a healthier society. I want a healthier, I want people to show up better in their lives, better for their families, better for their kids.
Yeah.
And so that's the big push that I see right now in the world.
Yeah, all that is incredible. And I think this will probably be my last question.
Yeah.
So even just like from my take from Vita Bella is I see what you're doing. I think it's incredible. And
Thank you.
for me, it's like I question whether I need all these like supplements because I do take care of myself pretty well. Yeah. And that's why I asked the question about the food because I'm just increasingly just like constantly looking at labels and it's like harder and harder to find good food. And so what would you say to someone that says that like, I don't feel like I necessarily need, I want to be more natural.
Yeah. So the first thing I'd say is good. Good that you're natural and good that you want to stay natural. Let's pull your biomarkers and your lab results and show you where your deficiencies are. I think that's the key. If you can avoid taking anything, avoid it. You can look at biomarkers and see where deficiencies are all across the body. You can a lot of times, and it's a lot of science into it. It's not bulletproof, but you can predict when, at what age someone's going to get diabetes. You can do all of these things and you can play with changes and try and help. I think that some of the things that we do aren't necessarily covering up everything, but they're going to make you feel better than you ever have in your life. So if you don't necessarily need to feel better and you're feeling the best version of yourself, then you don't want anything, by the way. And you should wait and hold off for as long as you can. However, if you don't feel like you're where you want to be, you don't have the motivation, you don't have the drive, you don't have the energy, your skin doesn't look the best, your manly parts aren't working optimally, right? And you need that boost, that efficiency, or you're looking for more confidence in any of those areas. That's where we come into play. We're not here to force anybody down a specific lane that they shouldn't be going to. It's pure, nothing we do is commission, nothing we do is anything. There's zero commission for anybody in our company. It's, you show up with what you want in your life to become the best version, or where you personally believe are your focus areas, losing weight, feeling better, having more energy, hormones, whatever it ends up being. And then our providers, our doctors, our nurse practitioners will walk you through that. But to your point, if you feel amazing, don't introduce anything. And I think before you even start taking all of those supplements, you should take your blood work. Because if you're eating good enough food, you shouldn't need a lot of those supplements, right? You're taking supplements because you're deficient, or you believe you're deficient in other areas of your nutrition. If you're eating healthy and you're eating, a good diet, you shouldn't be deficient.
Yeah.
Like people are like, I'm taking iron, I'm taking this. How much meat are you eating? How much steak are you eating that you're taking iron supplements? So you're not eating enough. I think that's a whole other conversation for another podcast is, people are like, they starve themselves, or, I don't eat this, or I don't eat that, or this diet or that diet. Diets are full of shit. Diets are truly, it is basic math. Calories in, calories out. You have a gas tank, 20 gallons of gas. If you put 25 gallons in the gas tank, what happens? 5 gallons come out, right?
Yeah.
Our body will hold that 5 gallons somewhere in our body. Until we burn that 5 gallons, we're not going back into the 20.
Yeah.
So the 20 is still there, and we're just going to keep on. And so you have to burn past the tank to begin to start burning fat. So, for example, if you want to lose weight, 20 gallons in the tank, you burn 10, you put 5 or 7 gallons in. You got a deficit of 2, and you keep on bringing it back down. And that's how this works. Now, not all calories are the same. I understand that. But by and large, it's a caloric math to lose weight. You have to create a deficit. Like, you can play with your body all you want with this diet and that diet and the meat diet and no carbs. And at the end of the day, they may work for a period of time, but it's just going to come down to pure caloric. But if you're feeling great, stick with it. There's no need to push any further.
Yeah, I love that, man. And I really appreciate that answer, and I'm glad that's how you guys are operating, where it's just like, because I think this will wrap up the entire conversation really well, because I don't think we necessarily got exactly to this, but it's like the first step that we take everybody through in our process, and it's awareness. Let's be fully transparent and honest of where we're at right now. Okay, we can get clear on what the vision is, what our goals is, who we want to become, but unless we know what our current location is, the GPS won't work. Right? And so that's what you're saying is, like, you're doing the blood work. You said biomarkers?
Biomarkers, yeah. Where's your tests? Where's all of your, red blood cells, white blood cells? What's your body look like today?
Right. So when you figure that out and you just get fully transparent and honest and saying, like, here's where you're doing well, here's where we need improvement, then we can start addressing these things. Because what is it, the phrase? Prescription with diagnosis is malpractice. And so I'm really...
Prescription without diagnosis.
Yeah. Prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. So I love that's how you're operating your company, of let's just see where you're at and then see how we can help, rather than saying, get this.
We're 100% patient driven. Like, you have to come to us and let us know what you want to improve on in your own life, right? I mean, we've created an outlet for almost every health and wellness category possible at a wholesale price. So if you have a need or you have an area of improvement that you want to work on, we should have something to help improve and get you where you need to be safely, right? We're not the company that's going to go and we're also, we didn't talk about this, we're not going to be the company that goes and gives everybody everything. Not everybody qualifies. And more importantly, testosterone specifically, under 30 years old, we won't even allow someone to come and get injectable testosterone. Why? Because they don't need it. They don't need injections. There's so many other treatments and medications that are out there that can help with hormones, like a pill like enclomiphene or clomiphene, that'll fundamentally change you in a week or two and make you much more of a man than you are right now. And that's not a quote, guys, because I'm going to get in trouble for making medical statements. But I mean, there's so many other things that are out there that we can do to really help you. But it's all driven on you. Like, what do you want most in your life? What do you want most? What are you looking to tackle? What are you looking to feel? What are you looking to look like? And if we can help you with it, we'll give you some options. You select what you want. If we don't believe you're the best candidate, I love turning people down. And I love turning people down because I think that if they just made small changes in their lives, they can do it on their own and they don't need us. And we do that pretty significantly. Like I love, because some people want to come too early. And you get a 22-year-old, this test is at 800. What am I going to do with you? It's nothing. Don't worry about it. Here's all your money back. Thank you for coming. Yeah.
Love that.
That's it.
Well, this has been amazing.
Awesome.
Thanks for coming through. Last question I always like asking is, what would you love for people to take away from this conversation we just had?
Talked about a lot of topics.
We covered a spectrum.
It's a ton. Selfishly, I want to talk about Phil Vella, but I'm not going to. I'd say that the biggest thing is to show up as the best version of yourselves for everybody around you. I think the more you live in your authentic self and you honor truly who you are and stop having the stories, it goes back to the cliche of I'd rather be loved, hated for who I am than loved for someone I'm not, is don't be addicted to the large circle. This society today is stuck with all of this social media that presents a life to you that for the most part is not real. And I lived it. Right? I mean, my stories and who I wasn't necessarily real. I wasn't the best father, although people thought I was at that time. And I think that just showing up, you're going to get better friends, better people, and you're going to feel better about your life if you just live your truth. And it's not going to be easy. Not everybody's going to make it in that friendship circle that you have today. But you're going to find out who your real friends are. Right? Stop showing up, bragging, showing off, and being that person. When you start showing up and you look at people's hearts instead of their faces, life becomes a lot clearer. And I think that's what I'd love for people to take away is just be yourself, and be the best version of yourself that you can be. Show up for all the people in your life that show up for you. And even show up for the people that don't always show up for you, right? There's no harm in that. There's a lot of pride and ego that get in the way sometimes. We're like, oh, he didn't do that to me. He wasn't there for me. It goes back to like a spirituality thing. Is there's a lot of things that have happened to you in your life that you didn't deserve.
Facts.
But it happened. Sometimes you need to be that thing for somebody else. And that's, if we all operated from a place of just trying to help each other and trying to be and just being ourselves, our authentic selves, and not being someone we're not, the world would be a lot better place. That's
so good.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, one last thing I was going to mention to all that. Seems like everything you say I can comment on. But, showing up with integrity, authenticity, you said it's not easy. It's not. And it's interesting because I think there is this misnomer that people will think about where, oh, when I start showing up authentically, then everyone's going to love it. And that's certainly not the case. And just like what you say is like the circle starts getting tighter and tighter because you don't resonate with a lot of the people that you used to. And that can be very challenging. At least from my experience, it's been challenging when you start recognizing things with people that you thought were close friends and it starts subsiding. But the reward on the back end is something that can't even be measured. Like the connections and the relationships that you build with the people that matter, that not only reciprocate the energy and the value that you give, but they amplify it. It's it's absolutely incredible, and I'm just so grateful for the true people in my inner circle that make me feel valued, make me feel important, make me feel alive, and make me feel like a five. The 1 + 1 = a 5.
Yeah.
And it's definitely worth it. So, yeah, man, thank you for being here. This was an incredible conversation.
Appreciate it, brother, man. Thank you for having me.